She walked into the pet store with a wolf cub in her arms and was thrown out immediately. They said it was dangerous, that she didn't know what she was doing, but everything changed when she pulled a document from her backpack, and the store owner recognized the name. From that moment on, no one dared to speak up. Subscribe to the channel now and discover how a rancher's granddaughter revealed herself to be the heir to something much greater. On a humid Tuesday morning, the little bell above the door of Animal House tinkled softly, announcing the entrance of a young woman with dusty boots, worn jeans, and a soiled cotton bandana tied around her neck. Julie, the 20-something clerk, who was arranging a pile of dog food bags, automatically looked up with her well-rehearsed commercial smile. The smile froze instantly. In the arms of the newcomer nestled a creature that didn't belong in this urban environment. A maned wolf, pup, with its disproportionately long legs, characteristic reddish-orange fur, and penetrating amber eyes that seemed to assess the environment with an ancestral wisdom. "Excuse me?" The young woman's voice came out timidly, with a heavy Montana accent. "I need to speak with the person in charge." Movement in the store ceased completely. An elderly man choosing dog collars dropped one, producing a metallic noise that echoed in the sudden silence. A child tugged at her mother's sleeve, pointing to the weird dog. "You can't bring that in here." Julie finally recovered her voice, moving quickly to come around the counter. "That's a wild animal. It's prohibited. I'm going to have to ask you to leave immediately, or I'll call the authorities." The young woman took a step back, gently pressing the pup against her chest. It showed no aggressive reaction, just observed everything with serene curiosity. "Please, I just need to talk to the owner," she insisted, while Julie was already gesturing toward the door. "My name is Morgan Lewis. I'm Anthony Lewis's granddaughter from Red Horizon Reserve. I have documents." But her explanation was interrupted by the arrival of the manager, Diane, a middle-aged woman with dyed hair and a severe expression. "What's going on here?" she asked sharply. But when she spotted the pup, her eyebrows rose so high they almost touched her hairline. "Good heavens! Julie, call the wildlife officers now." "No," Morgan pleaded, panic evident in her brown eyes. "Please, it's not what it seems. I have authorization. I just need to speak with Mr. Mitchell, please." The name seemed to have some effect. Diane hesitated, her lips pressed into a thin line of distrust. "How do you know Mr. Mitchell?" she asked. "My grandfather spoke of him," Morgan answered, taking advantage of the opening. "He said that if anything happened, I should look for him. I have all the documents here." Still reluctant, Diane gestured for the clerk to escort the unwelcome visitor to a small room at the back of the store, while muttering that she would fetch the owner. Morgan sat uncomfortably in the only available chair, an old wooden piece that seemed out of place among the modern office furniture. The maned wolf pup remained calm in her lap, occasionally sniffing the unfamiliar air. Its eyes seemed fixed on Morgan's, as if trying to reassure her. The door opened abruptly, and a man of medium height, with abundant white hair and thick eyebrows, entered the room. His blue eyes, vivid and perceptive despite his age, looked Morgan up and down before resting on the pup. "So you're Anthony Lewis's granddaughter?" It wasn't a question, but a statement, uttered in a tone that mixed surprise and something like recognition. "And this is a maned wolf pup?" Morgan nodded, holding the small animal more firmly. "How long has he been gone?" asked the older man, sitting in the opposite chair. 3 weeks, Morgan replied, her voice breaking. "A heart attack while checking the reserve's fences. It was very quick." Mr. Mitchell sighed deeply, running a hand over his wrinkled face. "Anthony was a stubborn man, but his heart was in the right place," he commented. "I worked with him for 5 years at the reserve before coming to the city. We haven't spoken for almost 2 decades. Morgan opened the worn leather bag she carried and removed a thick envelope, yellowed by time and creased at the edges. "He left this for you. He said that if anything happened to him, I should find you and deliver it personally." Mr. Mitchell's fingers trembled slightly as he accepted the envelope. Upon opening it, he found a handwritten letter and several official documents with EPA and Department of the Interior seals. As he read, his expression alternated between surprise, concern, and finally, determination. "This is more serious than I imagined," he murmured, looking up at Morgan. "Do you know what's happening with the reserve?" "Partially," she answered. Since he left us, I've been receiving almost daily visits from representatives of Green Valley Enterprises. They say the reserve's documentation is irregular, that I don't have the capacity to manage the place, and that the best option would be to sell. To them. Mr. Mitchell shook his head negatively. Green Valley has been trying to acquire that area for years. It's the last preserved ecological corridor of prairie land in that region. With it, they could build a luxury development connecting the city directly to the highway. "I won't sell," Morgan stated with surprising firmness, contrasting with her fragile appearance. "That reserve is my grandfather's legacy. It's home to the last manned wolves in the region." The pup, as if understanding the conversation, raised its head and emitted a small whine. Mr. Mitchell observed it with scientific interest. "This pup, is it from Star's litter?" Morgan seemed surprised. "You know Star?" "Anthony wrote to me about her occasionally. The last alpha female of the original lineage he began to protect. Finding her was what convinced him to create the reserve, as I recall." "Yes," confirmed Morgan, gently stroking the pup's orange fur. "This is Guardian, the only survivor of her last litter. I found him alone 2 weeks ago, near his mother's body." "And why did you bring him here?" questioned Mr. Mitchell. "Because he needs specialized care that I can't provide alone at the reserve, and because she hesitated. Because he's living proof of the reserve's ecological value. The documents my grandfather left mention a special clause. If we can prove the existence of a viable manned wolf population, the area cannot be legally sold or dismembered." Mr. Mitchell spent a few minutes analyzing the documents in silence. Then he looked at Morgan with renewed determination. "Your grandfather knew what he was doing," he affirmed. "These documents are legitimate, but Green Valley has influence and money. They'll contest everything, especially with you being so young and inexperienced." "I'm 23 and have a biology degree from State University," Morgan replied with a touch of pride. "I grew up on that reserve. I know every inch of it." A smile appeared on Mr. Mitchell's face. "You have the same fire in your eyes that your grandfather had," he commented. "Very well, let's close the store for today. We have a lot of work ahead of us." Morgan felt a wave of relief and hope course through her body. The manned wolf pup, as if sensing the change in her mood, gently licked her hand. "First," continued Mr. Mitchell, "we need a veterinarian specialized in wildlife to examine Guardian. Then, we'll contact some friends of mine at the EPA and the university. And most importantly, we need a good lawyer." "Thank you," murmured Morgan, her eyes welling up. "I didn't know who else to turn to." "Your grandfather and I had our differences," replied Mr. Mitchell, carefully storing the documents back in the envelope. "But we shared the same love for the prairie and its creatures. I won't let them destroy the work of a lifetime." As they left the room, Mr. Mitchell gestured for the employees and customers of the store to come closer. With one hand on Morgan's shoulder and the other indicating the pup, he announced, "This young woman is Morgan Lewis, granddaughter of Anthony Lewis, the greatest defender of the prairie that our region has ever known. And this," he pointed to, "the small manned wolf is Guardian, perhaps the last hope for the manned wolves of Red Horizon Reserve. From today, our store is officially engaged in the protection of this endangered species and in support of the reserve." The looks of astonishment gave way to expressions of curiosity and interest. Julie, the clerk who minutes before wanted to expel Morgan, was the first to approach to get a better look at the pup. The fight for Red Horizon Reserve was just beginning, and little Guardian, without knowing it, had already won his first allies. 3 days passed since the meeting at the pet store. The living room of Mr. Mitchell's small wooden house had been transformed into an improvised operations center. Maps of Red Horizon Reserve covered the walls, old and recent documents were spread across the dining table, and a laptop displayed satellite images of the area. Morgan, seated on the worn sofa, watched the manned wolf pup playing with a rubber ball in the backyard, visible through the back door. Veterinarian Dr. Paul Rivers, a wildlife specialist and longtime friend of Mr. Mitchell, had confirmed the animal's perfect health despite the adverse circumstances it had faced. "He has an unusual connection with you," Dr. Paul commented during the first consultation. "Maned wolves are naturally elusive and distrustful, even as pups. This one seems to recognize you as part of his family group." Mr. Mitchell's phone rang, interrupting Morgan's thoughts. The elderly man answered quickly, his wrinkled face becoming tenser with each second of conversation. "I understand. Yes, we'll be prepared. Thank you for the warning, Dr. Vincent." Upon hanging up, he turned to Morgan with a grave expression. "That was our lawyer. Green Valley has filed a lawsuit contesting your ability to manage the reserve. They're requesting the appointment of a legal guardian, claiming that you're inexperienced and that the property is in a state of abandonment, putting a protected species at risk." Morgan felt her stomach sink. "But that's absurd. The reserve is in perfect condition. I hired 2 temporary employees to help with maintenance while I'm here." "They know that," replied Mr. Mitchell, sitting beside her. "But they also know that the local judge, Judge Nelson, has close ties to real estate developments. If they get guardianship, the next step will be authorization to develop the area in a sustainable way." "And who would this guardian be?" asked Morgan, fearing the answer. "Alexander Morrison, Director of Institutional Relations at Green Valley." A heavy silence fell over the room, broken only by the muffled sounds of the pup in the backyard. Morgan felt a wave of anger and frustration growing inside her, but she breathed deeply, recalling her grandfather's teachings. "Anger doesn't protect the prairie. Strategy and perseverance do." "What are our options?" she finally asked. Mr. Mitchell smiled slightly, satisfied with the young woman's controlled reaction. "Your grandfather wasn't just a passionate conservationist. He was extremely methodical," he explained, reaching for a worn leather folder. "I've been reviewing some old documents that I kept from when we worked together. There's something interesting here." He opened the folder and removed a set of papers yellowed by time. "This is the original statute of the reserve, registered more than 30 years ago. There's a specific clause that was never revoked or altered." Morgan leaned in to read the document that Mr. Mitchell was pointing to. "The administration of Red Horizon Reserve shall remain perpetually under the control of the Lewis family, as long as there is a direct heir who demonstrates a genuine bond with the conservation of the native fauna, especially the maned wolf, Chrysochion brachyurus. Such a bond must be scientifically proven and recognized by competent authorities in the field of environmental conservation." "Genuine bond?" questioned Morgan, confused. "What does that mean legally?" "At the time your grandfather included this clause thinking about the future. He feared that his children or grandchildren might one day sell the property out of disinterest. But in your case," Mr. Mitchell gestured toward the backyard, where the maned wolf pup was now attentively observing a hummingbird. "Guardian's behavior with you isn't normal." Dr. Paul commented on this, and I, who worked with maned wolves for years, have never seen anything like it. There's something special about your connection with him, something we can document and use to our advantage. A spark of hope lit up in Morgan's eyes. "We need more," continued Mr. Mitchell. "Let's contact Dr. Lucy Martin from the State University. She's the country's leading expert on wild canid behavior. Will she help us?" Knowing her enthusiasm for unprecedented behavioral discoveries, I'm sure she will. "Besides," Mr. Mitchell briefly hesitated, "there's another matter we need to discuss." He picked up his tablet and opened a social media page. The photo of Morgan with the maned wolf pup, taken discreetly by a customer at the store on the first day, had gone viral. The hashtag #PrairieGuardian had already accumulated thousands of shares. "The media is interested in your story. The national news wants an exclusive interview." Morgan turned pale. Shy and reserved as she was, the idea of national exposure terrified her. "I can't do that," she murmured. "I wouldn't know what to say, how to behave." "I understand your fear," Mr. Mitchell gently replied, "but think about the power this would give us. With public opinion on our side, Green Valley would face much greater resistance. And you wouldn't be alone. We can prepare everything, rehearse the answers. Dr. Lucy could participate too, giving scientific credibility. Morgan looked again at Guardian, who was now approaching the glass door as if sensing her apprehension. The amber eyes of the pup seemed to transmit a silent message of courage. "All right," she finally agreed. "I'll do the interview." The next day, Mr. Mitchell's house received the news crew. Dr. Lucy Martin, a middle-aged woman with lively eyes and gray hair tied in an unpretentious bun, had arrived hours earlier and had been immediately fascinated by the pup's behavior. "Extraordinary," she repeated, while filming the interaction between Morgan and Guardian. "Maned wolves are naturally skittish and distrustful, even as pups. This one seems to recognize you as part of his family group. He responds to subtle commands, maintains prolonged eye contact, exhibits affiliative behaviors typical of wolves with their peers, not with humans. This is material for an article in Nature." The interview took place in the backyard, with the preserved prairie region as a backdrop. Morgan, initially tense, gradually relaxed as she spoke about her grandfather, the reserve, and the importance of preserving the maned wolf's natural habitat. The prairie is the second largest biome in the United States, but it receives only a fraction of the attention dedicated to forests, she explained with growing confidence. Species like the maned wolf are fundamental to the balance of this ecosystem, acting as seed dispersers and natural controllers of rodent populations. The most impactful moment of the interview, however, occurred when the reporter questioned the allegations from Green Valley that the reserve was abandoned. "Abandoned?" repeated Morgan, a determined gleam appearing in her eyes. "Let me show you something." She made a subtle gesture to the pup, who immediately approached. Then she whispered something in his ear. To the astonishment of everyone present, Guardian moved away, briefly disappearing among the vegetation, returning seconds later with a small prairie fruit, a ripe wild plum. "Guardian was born on the reserve. He's part of it just as I am," declared Morgan, as the pup carefully deposited the fruit in her hand. "We know every plant, every trail, every spring. This isn't abandonment. It's deep connection. It's traditional knowledge allied with conservation, science." Dr. Lucy, observing the scene, couldn't contain her scientific excitement. "What we're witnessing here is extraordinary. This collaborative behavior between human and maned wolf has no precedent in scientific literature. Well, there's clearly a cognitive and emotional bond that challenges our current understanding of interactions between people and wild animals." The report aired that same night in prime time, causing national commotion. Within hours, the hashtag #PrairieGuardian became the most commented topic on social media across America. Biologists, environmentalists, and celebrities expressed support for the cause. Environmental NGOs reached out, offering legal and technical support, but not all reactions were positive. The next morning, as Morgan was having coffee with Mr. Mitchell, and Dr. Lucy, lawyer Dr. Vincent arrived with a worried expression. "Green Valley is counterattacking," he announced, showing news on his tablet. "They've hired an expert who claims that the pup's behavior is the result of forced domestication, constituting mistreatment of a wild animal. They're intensifying the campaign for you to be removed from the administration of the reserve." Morgan felt her heart accelerate with indignation, but Dr. Lucy promptly intervened. "That's absurd. I can scientifically refute each of these allegations. I've already collected enough data to prove that the pup maintains all the natural behaviors of the species and has merely developed an extraordinary symbiotic relationship with Morgan. There's more," continued Dr. Vincent hesitantly. "We've received information that Green Valley employees were seen near the boundaries of the reserve last night. We don't know what they were doing there, but—" "We need to go back," declared Morgan, rising abruptly. "Now." Mr. Mitchell nodded, understanding the urgency. "I'll arrange transportation and alert our contacts at the EPA. Dr. Paul should come with us to ensure Guardian's health during the journey." "I'm coming too," affirmed Dr. Lucy. "I need to document this behavior in his natural habitat. This will strengthen our case even more." While they prepared for the journey back to Red Horizon Reserve, Morgan found a moment to be alone with Guardian. The pup, now visibly larger after days of proper feeding, sat in front of her, eyes fixed on hers. "We're going home," she whispered, caressing his pointed ears, "and we're going to protect it, no matter what happens." As if understanding every word, Guardian emitted a soft whimper and touched his muzzle to her hand, a gesture of trust and partnership that, without Morgan knowing yet, would be crucial in the challenges to come. The group arrived at Red Horizon Reserve at dusk. The prairie sky was tinged with shades of orange and purple, creating a natural spectacle that never failed to move Morgan. But the beauty of the moment was overshadowed by the scene they found at the main gate: a wildlife officer's vehicle and an official EPA car parked next to a pickup truck with the Green Valley logo. "What's happening?" Morgan asked Mr. Jack, the oldest employee of the reserve, who came hurriedly to meet them. "They arrived an hour ago," explained the elderly man, visibly nervous. "They say they received reports of illegal hunting inside the reserve. The Green Valley representative is accompanying the inspection as an interested observer, according to him." Morgan exchanged worried looks with Mr. Mitchell. It was evident that this was a strategy to find any irregularity that could be used against the reserve's administration. "Where are they now?" asked Dr. Vincent, adjusting his tie. "On the East Trail near the main spring," replied Mr. Jack. "They insisted on checking that specific area." Dr. Lucy frowned. "The East Trail? Isn't that where Star's main territory was?" Morgan nodded, a sudden understanding illuminating her face. "They're not looking for evidence of hunting," she murmured. "They're looking for the rest of the litter." "But you said Guardian was the only survivor," Mr. Mitchell reminded her. "And he is," confirmed Morgan. "But they don't know that. If they find traces of Star without other living pups, they can allege negligence on my part, arguing that I should have found and rescued all of them." The manned wolf pup, who until then had remained calm in Morgan's lap during the journey, now became agitated, as if sensing the tension in the air. When she placed him on the ground, he immediately oriented himself in the direction of the east trail, his muzzle raised, intensely sniffing. "He senses something," observed Dr. Lucy, already preparing her camera. "This behavior is fascinating." "Let's follow Guardian," decided Morgan. "He knows the territory better than any map." The group advanced along the trail, guided by the pup, who, surprisingly, moved with purpose and confidence through the prairie vegetation. After 20 minutes of walking, they heard voices and saw flashlights ahead. "There must be more evidence around here," said an authoritative male voice. "The report mentions a complete litter, not just one pup." "Mr. Morrison, we're here to verify hunting complaints, not to investigate manned wolves," replied an official female voice. "So far we haven't found any indication of illegal activity." Morgan signaled for the group to stop. Through the vegetation, they could see Alexander Morrison, the Green Valley executive, an EPA agent, and 2 wildlife officers examining what appeared to be the remains of a natural shelter, the place where Star had given birth to her pups. Guardian emitted a small whine, drawing the attention of the group ahead. Everyone turned, surprised. "Morgan Lewis," Alexander Morrison quickly recovered from the surprise, forcing a smile. "What a fortunate coincidence. We were just verifying some irregularities reported in your absence." "There are no irregularities, Mr. Morrison," Morgan replied firmly, advancing to the center of the clearing. "Just a transparent attempt to fabricate evidence against me." The EPA agent, a middle-aged woman with a severe expression, observed the manned wolf pup that was now exploring the old shelter. "Ms. Lewis, I'm Agent Cardoso. I presume this is the pup mentioned in the national news report," she said. "Do you have the proper documentation to keep him under your care?" Dr. Vincent stepped forward, presenting a folder with documents. "All the records, authorizations, and veterinary reports are here, including Dr. Lucy Martin's technical opinion on the unique behavioral bond between Ms. Lewis and the animal." Agent Cardoso examined the documents carefully, while Alexander Morrison seemed increasingly uncomfortable. "This doesn't change the fact that the reserve is clearly poorly managed," he insisted. "A breeding female of an endangered species died, while the person in charge was absent. And where are the other pups? Scientific literature indicates that manned wolves typically have 2 to 4 pups per litter." At that moment, something extraordinary happened. Guardian, who had been investigating the old shelter, began to dig energetically at a specific point. Everyone watched in silence, intrigued. After a few seconds, he unearthed a small object and brought it directly to Morgan. It was a broken tracking device, the type used in field research. "This is," began Dr. Lucy, examining the object. "A Green Valley tracker," completed Morgan, turning the device to show a small, partially visible logo, and judging by its condition, it was damaged by bites. Agent Cardoso took the device, examining it with growing interest. "Mr. Morrison, does your company have authorization for wildlife monitoring inside this private reserve?" The executive visibly paled. That device could have been placed by anyone, he tried to argue, probably by previous researchers. "It has your company's logo," pointed out Mr. Mitchell, "and it looks quite recent." The situation was becoming increasingly tense when Guardian again drew everyone's attention, this time heading to a nearby tree. He sat under it and emitted a sharp howl, surprisingly powerful for his size. "What is he doing?" asked one of the wildlife officers. "Communication," responded Dr. Lucy, already filming. "Fascinating, he's calling but what?" The answer came seconds later in the form of movement among the highest branches. To everyone's astonishment, a second manned wolf pup, visibly smaller and more fragile than Guardian, timidly appeared. "Impossible!" exclaimed Morgan, open-mouthed. "I searched for days. How did he survive alone?" The second pup, after briefly hesitating, descended from the tree with awkward movements and cautiously approached Guardian, who maintained a protective posture. The two exchanged brief touches of muzzles in clear fraternal recognition. "He must have hidden when Star faced problems," suggested Mr. Mitchell, "and Guardian knew. That's why he was so anxious to return." Dr. Lucy couldn't contain her scientific excitement. "This is revolutionary. Highly complex family protection behavior, followed by interspecific communication to guide humans to the hidden sibling. We are witnessing intelligence and cognitive capacity never before documented in this species." Agent Cardoso, after observing the scene in silence, turned to Alexander Morrison with a severe expression. "Mr. Morrison, your company has a lot to explain. Unauthorized installation of tracking devices in a protected area, invasion of private property, possible interference with an endangered species." "This is absurd," protested the executive. "We have nothing to do with—" But his defense was interrupted by Dr. Vincent's cell phone, which was ringing insistently. The lawyer answered, stepping away for a moment. When he returned, there was a triumphant smile on his face. "That was Federal Judge Montero," he announced. "He has just accepted our counter-petition and ordered a complete audit of the documents submitted by Green Valley. Apparently, some signatures on their environmental licenses show concerning inconsistencies." It was Alexander Morrison's turn to turn completely pale. "Additionally," continued Dr. Vincent, "reporter Claudia Ferraz is right now going live on national news with a special report on the mysterious coincidence between the start of Green Valley's negotiations and the sudden increase in accidents involving wildlife in the region." "That's defamation," protested Morrison, but his voice no longer carried the same confidence. "No, Mr. Morrison," intervened Mr. Mitchell, "that's investigative journalism. Ms. Ferraz spent the last 2 days interviewing local residents and analyzing public records. Fascinating how so many animals began to appear injured, precisely in the areas that your company wishes to acquire." Agent Cardoso gestured to the wildlife officers. "Escort Mr. Morrison to the reserve headquarters. We'll need a formal statement about this unauthorized device." As the group reorganized, Morgan approached the second pup carefully, which was still partially hidden behind Guardian. With smooth movements and gentle words, she extended her hand. "It's all right now," she murmured. "You're safe." To everyone's surprise, the smaller pup, after exchanging a brief look with Guardian, advanced hesitantly and sniffed Morgan's hand. Then, in a gesture that drew exclamations from those present, it licked her fingers and allowed her to pet. "Janakim, it's amazing," commented Dr. Lucy, still filming. "Guardian literally communicated to his brother that you are trustworthy. We're witnessing a form of social recommendation between maned wolves. On the way back to the reserve headquarters, with the two pups now walking confidently beside her, Morgan felt a deep sense of accomplishment. The sun had already disappeared on the horizon, but the first stars were beginning to dot the prairie sky. "I'll call him Hope," she decided, observing the new pup, "because that's what he brought us today." 3 months later, Red Horizon Reserve had been transformed. The main house, previously modest, now housed a small research and environmental education center. School groups visited regularly, marveled at the opportunity to see the now famous maned wolves up close, always at a safe and respectful distance. Green Valley had been fined record amounts for falsification of environmental documents and illegal interference in endangered species habitat. The housing development project had been indefinitely shelved, and areas adjacent to the reserve were declared buffer zones, ensuring greater protection. Morgan, now nationally recognized as a conservation biologist, walked along the main trail, alongside Mr. Mitchell, watching Guardian and Hope, now much larger, playing among the typical prairie vegetation. "Your grandfather would be very proud," commented Mr. Mitchell. "You not only saved the reserve, you transformed it into a model of integrated conservation." "I didn't do it alone," replied Morgan, smiling as she saw Dr. Lucy in the distance, conducting a group of university students in a field class. "It was a collective victory. And most importantly," continued Mr. Mitchell, "you established a legal precedent for other private reserves. The Lewis Clause, as they're calling it, is already being incorporated into other conservation statutes across the country." Morgan smiled, watching the sunset tinge the prairie golden. Guardian, as if perceiving her contemplation, approached and sat beside her, looking in the same direction. "You know what my grandfather always said?" she commented, gently stroking the maned wolf's head. "The prairie doesn't need owners. It needs guardians." The following week, the public hearing that would definitively decide the future of the reserve attracted hundreds of people to the city courthouse. National and international journalists jostled to get the best angle. The story of the rancher's granddaughter with her maned wolves had captured the public's imagination, becoming a symbol of the fight for prairie conservation. When Morgan's moment to speak arrived, a respectful silence fell over the room. At her side, in an unprecedented demonstration authorized by the judge, Guardian remained serene, observing the audience with his intelligent, amber eyes. "I'm not here merely as the heir to a property," Morgan began, her firm voice echoing through the auditorium. "I'm here as the continuer of a conservation legacy that began with my grandfather, but which belongs to all of us. The prairie, with its unique biodiversity, isn't just a set of lands available for economic exploitation. It's a national heritage that deserves protection." As she spoke, images of the reserve, the maned wolves, and the research work were projected on the screen behind her. "When I walked into that pet store months ago, carrying a maned wolf pup in my arms, I never imagined I would be starting a journey that would change not only my life, but the perception of so many people about the importance of conservation. Guardian," she indicated the maned wolf at her side, "isn't just an animal I saved. He's the one who saved me, who showed us the path to a new way of thinking about our relationship with nature." Morgan's speech was followed by technical testimonies from Dr. Lucy, whose research on the exceptional behavior of the reserve's maned wolves had been accepted for publication in international scientific journals, and from Dr. Paul, who presented data on the positive impact of maned wolf preservation on the regional ecological balance. When the federal judge finally announced his decision, confirming Morgan's irrevocable right to administer the reserve and establishing additional protections against future attempts at commercial exploitation of the area, spontaneous applause took over the auditorium. That night, back at the reserve, Morgan sat on the porch of the main house, contemplating the stars twinkling over the prairie. Guardian and Hope rested nearby, their silhouettes outlined against the night sky. "We did it, Grandpa," she whispered to the warm wind that blew softly. "The prairie is protected." Beside her, Mr. Mitchell smiled, his eyes reflecting the brilliance of the stars and the satisfaction of a successful fight. "It's not the end of the story," he commented. "It's just the beginning of a new chapter." Morgan nodded, feeling a quiet certainty grow within her. The little bell at the pet store that had tinkled on that fateful morning had been just the first sound of a symphony of change that now echoed far beyond the boundaries of Red Horizon Reserve. Guardian raised his head as if hearing a distant call and emitted a long, melodic howl. Seconds later, Hope joined him, their voices intertwining in the night. And then, to the astonishment of Morgan and Mr. Mitchell, a third howl responded from afar, then a fourth and a fifth, the wild, manned wolves of the reserve, recognizing their young relatives and, in some mysterious way, celebrating the shared victory. Dear listeners, we hope the story of Morgan and Guardian has touched your hearts. To continue this emotional journey, we've prepared a special playlist with equally captivating stories about the connection between humans and nature. Find it here, clicking to the left. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like the video. Every day we bring unique stories that explore the complexity of life and the beauty of our American landscapes. Don't miss our upcoming content and share your own experiences with nature in the comments. Which moment of the story moved you the most?